I'm first, right?
Yep.
Welcome to UltraCycling Magazine.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UltraCycling Magazine. My name is George Stoichev, and I'm going to be your host du jour for tonight.
And thank you for being with us, Georgie. Jim's not here again, and my throat is in bad shape, as you can hear. So we're we're glad to have you with us. We want to get to our guest. Got a great guest tonight, and I know there are people already waiting out there. So we want to just tell everybody that we're here because of the wonderful people who operate our time stations and the race across America. 41 in Oxford, Ohio, 42 in Blanchester, and 43 in Chillicothe. And we also are here because of Mike Minium, the sign man who puts the signs out through Indiana and Ohio. We'll be talking more about those and how you can get them, but they're on trophy walls around the world, and they can go on your trophy wall. You can get them here at our time stations. The only place you can get them is right here at our time stations. And we want to make sure that everybody knows that. Let me get that banner. Jim not being here, you see, we are already confused. I can't find it right away. I'll get it up there. You can comment or ask questions tonight by simply using the comment section of either YouTube or Facebook, and we can then put them on. And we already have a couple comments waiting in the scenes there, Georgie, so we'll get to them
Beautiful.
as quickly as we can. But first of all, we want to make sure we thank everybody who follow us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube. And those of you who are subscribing on YouTube, hey, be sure and ring that bell, okay? Georgie, bell, stop ringing. Go away.
All right.
Georgie, talk to us about Cold Country Roubaix.
Yeah, sure. My friend Joe Lawhorn has been working really hard on this gravel race all year. Um, it's located in Lisbon, Ohio. It's on April 27th. It's called Cold Country Roubaix. Everyone should try it. I've been waiting to have a race close by, and I'm already registered. So, again, April 27th. I think more information on our website, ucm.bike. If you need more info, just go there, ucm.bike.
That's right. And you'll go down there to the show notes, actually, Georgie, for the show. You'll see a link to the registration. So, hey, let's get on to talk about next week a little bit here, if I can find everything. Here we go. Next week, Damian Pazakowski from Poland. He was the 300K winner at the race around Poland this year. He'll be on next week. And Eastern time, that's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern. And as we've answered this question before, a couple of people asking again, why do you keep switching times? Because we want this show to appear at a time zone convenient to the area where our guest is from. Our objective is to enhance ultracycling in these various parts of the world, and we believe this is a good way to do it. So next week we'll have him on. Got some other interesting shows in the works. You can always find those on the website, ucm.bike, and click on future shows, see what's coming up. So with that, Georgie, let's get Dr. Vince in here.
Good
And
afternoon, good evening, guys.
I'm going to give my throat a rest and let you talk with Dr. Vince, Georgie.
Hey, Dr. Vince, how are you doing?
Doing great, Georgie. Thanks for having me on this evening.
All right. Well, let's start with some introduction here. Tell us,
Okay.
tell us where you're from. Who's Dr. Vince?
Sure. I'm out here in California, right? We're 10 minutes from south of LAX. People know this because we're always picking them up from the airport, either getting ready for Borrego or getting ready for Ram. And been a chiropractor for almost close to 30 years now. Been taking care of folks. And before, getting into, I've been cycling as a triathlete for the last 30 years as well. And got ran off the road about almost now 14 years ago and landed on my head. So it was hard to hold my head out in the arrow position. So I had to sort of give that up for a while. And my wife said, well, you got time now. Why don't you invent this bicycle seat? And so with my knowledge of understanding how the body works, and we just sort of started looking at seats, but always waiting for somebody to come out with a better seat. And we found for understanding how the pelvis actually looks and works, and understanding these butt bones that everybody has problems, or the perineum of where there are areas where they have pain and discomfort. We started to redesign the way a seat was meant to be sat on. So that's a little bit what we've tried. And now over the last 10 years, celebrating our 10-year anniversary, and meeting all these wonderful folks that ride bikes, whether they're on the Strand for 5 miles with prostate issues, or whether they're going ahead and people that do RAM or 24-hour or any type of randoneering. We've just met so many wonderful people around the world that found our seat because of necessity. And, we have people that sort of reach out to us, and, they go, why invent a seat? And I was like, well, I invented a bicycle seat, not just to create another bicycle seat, but to allow people to achieve their dreams. And that was my dream, is to be able to, as I was semi-retired, to be able to ride a bike like I did 20 years previously, to be able to still enjoy being out on a bike and the freedom that it gives to us, and the feeling, and doing charity rides. And so that is really the biggest component of why myself, and taking time away from my practice and developing the seat, is really out of passion and taking care of athletes.
Hey, I want to interrupt here real quick and just acknowledge all these people have jumped in.
All right, let's talk to them.
Yeah, Caleb and Phil Fox, Sylvia Moss,
Sylvia, Nancy.
and
Yep.
see, we bless you, Nancy, as you struggle with some challenges in your life. Spiegel Bikes, of course, and Dusty Dustin, my favorite painter.
Yes,
thank you all for
yes.
jumping in here. If you've got questions and so forth, we'd like to hear from all of you. And if you don't have a question or comment, just tell us where you're from. So go ahead, Georgie.
Yeah. Well, the bicycle suit is very different than any other seat. I know obviously a little bit about it. I started using in 2017. I think you just turned 10 years, but
10
it's
years,
so
yeah.
different. How did you come up with this particular design? Looking at any other seat on the market, we usually see a little opening in the middle, but nothing similar to Infinity. So
Right.
how did that came about?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is that we go ahead and we get our bike, a seat that comes with our bike. And then what happens after a certain period of time, we go to a bike shop and we say, okay, my butt's bothering me, or I'm having some type of perineum pain. And then the young shop, salesman is just going, well, there's the wall. And, and then what we do as cyclists is we take a look, and, like this seat, it says it has gel on it. And so the number one thing that we make this educated decision whether a seat's going to work for us is by taking it and squeezing it. And we go, oh, that has some cushion there. That's going to probably be good for me. But if everybody could take their index finger and their thumb and squeeze it together and then they look at the color of their thumb or their index finger, they're going to notice it's white. And that's called ischemia. That's cutting off blood flow. So when we take our body weight and we cut it in half, we sit on that portion. And what it happens is it feels uncomfortable after a while. And so what we do is we sit on there for a period of time on those butt bones. And what takes place is then we look for more bone real estate and we begin to slide forth because we have that so-called opening. But in that area is right where our privates, our male or female soft tissue. And so maybe when we're back here, that little opening will help. But as I slide forth, that area becomes a little narrower. So noticing the width of the butt bones and looking at hundreds of thousands of x-rays over the last 30 years, it's really showed that the seats, you'll go, I haven't been dealing with those pinpoint areas of the bone pressure. You come out with different models, you have different padding, different looks of a seat. But for us, we said, okay, I started tearing apart seats. Hello, Happy. We started going ahead and looking at different seats about going ahead and understanding that the butt bone width needed a place to have some relief. And so that's where we started looking at our seat. And so, if you look again at the difference, this is a saddle. And a saddle by definition means to straddle. We are called the infinity seat because seat by definition means to sit in. So as we had this saddle that you sit on, we start looking at how now when we look at ours, that opening of, if I turn this around, you can see there's no pressure on the butt bones or the pubic rami. So, and the other component, it doesn't have a hard base. So now, whether you're 100 pounds or you're 300 pounds, the seat is going to load to your body weight. And at the bottom of the stroke, it's going to slightly shift and move. That allows the seat to move with you, whether you're spinning 50 or 90 RPMs. So it was really able to focus on how to take pressure off. And the way that everybody can be out there that's even thinking about, that either has our seat or thinking about our seat, that if you take your knuckle and you put it on a hard surface right now, you'll feel that pressure on the bone tissue. But if you take your fingertip and you put it on the surface, you'll see how that softens up. So you're really using your muscle, your fat, and your water that you're sitting on, the outside component of the buttock tissue, and not on the bone tissue. And a dime of pressure can affect the nervous system, which can cause you after a period of time to shift and move while you're trying to go ahead and enjoy this great ride, whether it be 25 miles, whether it be 50 miles, whether it be 100, or whether it be 3,000 miles. So I believe at the end of the day, pain distracts us. It steals energy away from us to be able to achieve our dreams. And my wife, after me coming home from a 75-mile bike ride, and she saw my male parts that were purple, she just said, that's it. We've got to figure out a solution. I know you love cycling, but I love our relationship. And so she's really the one that pushed me to go ahead and invent the seat and really take our education and our knowledge and our passion for cycling to the next level.
Thank you for that. And I imagine you sink in the seat, so your seat post will have to go up. How about pedaling technique or even the bits, the cycling bits? Where does this matter at all when it
It
comes
does.
to being comfortable
It really does. And,
on the seat?
when we start talking about the seat, sometimes the biggest thing that we see, as I've been doing fits for the last 10 years on folks, is that there is either a couple things going on. Either they have their seat post too high, they have a bike that's too big, or they have cranks that are too long. When you have long cranks for your inseam length, then what happens is you feel that you have to raise the seat up because you feel your pedal stroke is too squatty. And then when you raise your seat up, then at the bottom of the stroke, you have to straddle inside. The other component, if I have a longer leg, but I have a shorter arm or a shorter torso, when I'm reaching out into the hoods, I might be stretched out. And so you'll see a lot of folks that are riding in the back part of the bar or riding and they're staying locked out because their cockpit is too far away from them. So what they do is they give up for comfort, they give up the power that they generate. And so now I see people trying to move their seat too far forward, which then throws off their pedal stroke, which then they feel they have to go ahead and raise the seat up more, which then causes more pressure onto the perineum, onto the butt bones, and they think that they need a new seat. So when we're doing fits here in our studio, we don't just go right into putting them onto the bike. We'll go ahead, we'll look at how they're standing, we'll watch their gait. We go ahead, and as you come here, Georgie, we'll go ahead and look at x-rays, we'll look at MRIs if they are available. We look at blood to make sure that their nutrition that they're taking is working. Because the biggest thing when you go get fitted, that fitter is there looking at angles and sometimes looking at wattage that you're putting out. I'm going to start looking at how is your body communicating, and are you able to maintain that type of endurance or that performance that you're looking for. So when somebody is out of alignment and their body is tight in a certain mechanism, you're going to be always chasing them on the bike versus trying to understand why are they tight in the first place. Well, I have people go, oh, I can't ever touch my toes because my hamstrings are so tight. My ITTs are always tight, and I'm constantly using a foam roller on them. I'm constantly having neck issues. I'm having XYZ. And if you don't address those issues before you go into getting a bike fit, then the fitter is going to fit you accordingly, and you'll get better than you would if you didn't have a fit, but you're going to still be, as we all have. I've had a dozen fits before I became a chiropractor, and understanding. But what takes place is that we go out there and ride, but when we're inside the studio in the clinic getting our fit, we're going ahead and having maybe 30 minutes to an hour of actual spin time while we're getting positioned into the most comfortable position. And it's really subjective because what is the fitter asking? The fitter is asking you, how does that feel? Does this feel better? Or does this feel better? Does that feel better? Or this feel better? And so they are going purely off of your communication to them versus able to go, you know what, I can see that you're a little bit, and really, there's a lot of experienced fitters that right off the bat can see that a person's not doing well and set them up. But if they have tight muscles, where I really want people to think about, hey, Caleb, think about that if somebody has a heart attack, their left arm goes numb or tingling. And in medicine, that's called a viscerosomatic response. So that's an organ muscle relationship. We have other organs that are connected to other muscles that could be causing a silent communication of why your body is working in a position that it is. And you feel frustrated when you get multiple fits, you've gotten through different multiple changes of your cranks and everything else, because everybody's looking at only the bike, the inorganic matter, versus looking at you as the cyclist first. I have so many people that talk about, oh yeah, I fractured my collarbone 2 years ago. I had an AC separation. I had some rib fractures. I just talking to Caleb just a little while ago and hearing, unfortunately, after Borrego having an accident. Unfortunately, he's had a broken collarbone and some ribs. So after the major inflammation calms down, we're going to be taking care of him and getting his whole system back on track before versus just letting that heal and then coming back into cycling and like nothing happened. He's super strong, as everybody knows, but he has cellular tissue that's adapted to this injury from shortness of breath, trying to adapt for making sure that you don't stress those rib fractures or dealing with that collar fracture. So the whole body goes into the splinted motion. So everything that I try to do when looking at a fit is take the cyclist in and understanding, because they're not going to remember everything. So I have to take my knowledge of 30 years and start asking questions going back 10, 20, 30 years, especially if somebody's lived in a cold environment and slipped on some black ice and landed on their tailbone when they used to play hockey or something. So those are diving deeper in to a fit more so than just fitting them on the bike, is really diving into doing a biofit on the cyclist first.
Thank you. Thank you. I see a lot of people commenting below. It seems like everyone loves your seat. Uh, so tell us a little bit more about the different type of seats, and are they
Yeah,
suitable for both male and female, different disciplines, TT bike?
sure.
Is it any different how you set it up on a TT bike versus a road bike? Does
That's a
particular, discipline require particular seat, or they all work equally well?
great. Those are great questions. So when we're looking at the seat, we start off with, you have the for any of our ultra distance cyclists, we're going to go ahead and have the E3, and that's got a bifurcated horn. It's going to have a 1/4 inch of padding on there. So anybody that's doing RAM or having multiple bikes for hill climbing or flats, for flats, we're going to go ahead and recommend the open version. And on a road bike, so I was tired of, also the other thing when looking at seats is that sometimes I would have a seat, and let's say that it was flat, but my rails were bent to go ahead. And so I wanted to start off when somebody had the seat is to go ahead and have the starting position in 0, and then allowing them to be able to sit in the sweet spot of the seat. So on a road bike, we'll start off with the rails in a neutral position, and usually in a road bike, they'll go ahead and bring the seat up maybe 1 to 2 millimeters if they're always riding sort of in the hoods or the back of the bars. If they're a person that rides in the drops, they'll go ahead and maybe drop it down a degree or two, so that way they can go ahead and get into that position. From a TT perspective, now we're looking at not the metal rails, but we're looking at the seat rails. And the whole portion from a TT perspective is we're really getting almost 30 to 40 millimeters farther forward. So we really need to open up the hip angle to allow us to that great pedal stroke to take place. So we're going to be looking at a TT position, setting up the seat where the seat rails are going to go ahead and be close to parallel with the floor, which allows sort of a shelf and allows them to sit on the bike while they're in the aero position. So those are sort of the two positions when looking at a road bike or a TT. For sometimes we have folks that are in the petite range, meaning that either they're on the shorter line, or the possibility is that they could be long, but they are also very lean. So I had a gentleman that was 5'10", but weighed 127 pounds. And he says, I don't have any pressure on my butt bones, but I'm constantly getting cysts in the perineum, and I've had to have multiple surgeries to remove them. And so with that, that would go ahead and be our E2X. All our seats have the same frame size, just a little bit difference for what. So now you have this leather piece that allows them to go ahead and ride about 5 millimeters higher in the seat. So if we go ahead and we look at the open version and they're sitting inside there, it allows them to sink down into the opening just a little bit and cradle them. Where the person is very lean or on the shorter stature, now they can go ahead and have this 5 millimeters higher, so they're not sitting so much in the opening, but allows them to sit and still have that comfort. This is also a good seat that sometimes in the female population, there is a situation where the hypertrophy of the labia majora, or in the male having increased testicular sac tissue. So sometimes having an opening, if you're a lean person, the opening allows them to go ahead and have that space to take pressure off the female and male soft tissue. So those are, if we have for our mountain biking world, our cyclocross, our gravel bike world, we have the closed version. I don't have that in front of me right here, but that will go ahead and be covered through over the whole seat, which then sort of protects from mud and water to be flipped up onto the seat as well. So those are basically the different versions for different cyclists and for different terrain that you have for your cyclists.
Sounds good. And the new seats for gravel, they're synthetic material, correct?
They are.
And then all the other ones are real leather. Therefore, you need to take special care.
Yep. And so the biggest thing on our leather seats, thanks for bringing that up, is we ask people not to use any type of creams or butters. And because people use them, if I can just sort of back up on that, people, when you ride with a bib, your bib is going to go ahead and absorb the sweat and moisture. And if you think about it, if we were all swimming and over a period of time, our fingers become pruny. And the reason for that is because that shows there's more water outside of our body. So the body will start to recede the hydration inside the cellular tissue, which causes the pruniness. So when I'm riding for long distance, for long periods of time, and I am perspiring, those paths, my kit gets wet. Or if I'm going ahead and also, unfortunately, riding during rain, my kit is wet. So the tissue in the perineum area will go ahead and become dehydrated, pulling water away from there because there's more water around the cellular tissue, which then will change the pH of the skin. So with people thinking that the butters will help with the lubrication, will help with the moisturization of that. But what we've noticed when people are using that, that it actually will go ahead and on our leather, because the leather is real. It's actual, it's organic. It absorbs that butter and creams, and over a period of time will actually break down the petroleum product that holds the leather onto the seats. And so if that can actually break down petroleum products, I think I say to people, imagine what you're doing and absorbing that directly into your skin. And in the groin area is one of your largest amounts of lymph nodes that go ahead and deal with toxicities. So a lymph node contracts, a muscle will contract to help pump the lymphatic fluid. But if a lymph node has toxicity, it doesn't want to just pump it right in back into the heart. So the muscles can sometimes tighten up. So these are things that I share with people. They go, yeah, I was great for the, whether I'm, if I'm doing the raw, I'm doing RAM, and they're at some certain amount, they find their bodies start to fall apart. They start to notice either leg cramps. They start having shoulder problems. They start to notice where the body starts to hiccup. And that's a lot of times dealing with over toxicity and the lymph nodes causing muscles to tighten up. So when we look at, and again, sort of shifting, but I wanted to talk about that, is that so the leather seats, we ask people not to use any type of butters or creams. So, but we started getting into the eco world, the eco challenges, where we have cyclists doing 1 day, 8 day, 9 day challenges, and they're constantly wet. So in this wet environment, the leather never gets a chance to dry out. So we went to a marine vinyl that you'll see on yachts or you'll see on Sea-Doos. So now a person can go ahead and be on their seat. It'll still have the effect. It'll be able to go ahead, if when they get home, they can spray and wash and go. So it's a little bit easier care versus having the traditional leather. So this is basically for your off-road, for your adventure cyclists that have now using this marine vinyl.
Beautiful. Thank you. I know when I first started doing long distance, I was using a Brooks
Mhm.
saddle, and
Yep.
I was told you have to at least do 500 miles. Does it take a while to get used to your seats? How soon will I know if I test one that this will work for me or it will not?
That's another great. You're giving some great pearls of questions here. The biggest thing that we've noticed, and I said back before, if you put your knuckle on the table and then you put your finger to it, you could feel the difference instantaneously. And we've had people that are constantly, you just see their eyebrows, sort of like when they get on the bike and they're doing a demo with us. And I'm sure you've had this, Georgie, when they get on, it's like, what's going on here? I've never felt anything like
Yeah.
that. And here's the thing. Well, you were talking about a Brooks, or you talk about a Sella Atomica, fantastic companies, right? Brooks have been
Hmm.
around forever. And so, yes, it takes time because you have this beautiful organic leather that needs sweat. It needs to go ahead and be kneaded to go ahead and soften up. And unfortunately, you still have some contact that you're dealing with that you're going to be resting on some part of your bone tissue. And you finally get into that great position. And again, I don't ride Brooks myself. I tried the Sella Atomica. Unfortunately, it was just a little too firm, and I didn't have the patience to break that in. But you see them constantly throughout RAM, wonderful companies, and it's as you said, the break-in period. When you get
Hmm.
onto our seat, we don't have any type of pressure. So when I'm riding on that area, it's going to mold to me, whether I have a pelvis that's tilted, whether I have a pelvis that's rotated or tilted and rotated. The openings really help to go ahead and adjust for my configuration, is what we were talking about before. Any past traumas that have showed some misalignment of the way that my pelvis is sitting. So when you take any other saddle that's out there, they're even from left to right. And so if I have an uneven pelvis, you're going to have maybe more pressure on one side of the ischium. Maybe you'll have that torque where you'll have more pressure onto the perineum area, where our seat really fits to a person, like I said, whether you're 100 pounds or 300 pounds, it really molds to your body because the patented technology that we have inside the seat to be able to rebound, and whether it's, having that tilted pelvis or whether to go ahead, it molds your body and how you are sitting on the seat. So the seat really sort of mirror images what your dynamics of your body is doing. When you talk about, here's one thing that's crazy. As we said, it slightly moves with you. So if you're used to being on a traditional saddle where you're straddling back and forth and you have your seat high and you're used to mashing the pedals, not working through your pedal stroke, but mashing your pedals, we have had people go, you know what, your seat, I'm losing power on it because the seat slightly flexes with you. So it's almost like being on some type of Stairmaster. And so if you don't, that really shows some of the hiccups inside of our pedal stroke. So I really go back to after we do a biofit, get everybody dialed up, as you saw, we go right into your pedal stroke. We're looking not just at your wattage, we're not just looking at your left and right pressure, but we're also looking at your torque angle. We're looking at how that is even from left to right, which is so imperative and unfortunately is not looked at that much in the fitting world of how, because we're just going by what the patient thinks. But when you get on our seat, we've had a gentleman, what is his name? Oh my gosh. Well, there's lots of cyclists, but we had one cyclist out of Europe that put the seat on and then did 750-kilometer race that weekend. We had another guy that just rode us a couple weeks ago and put the seat on to go around for a ride around the block, around the neighborhood. Came back 50 miles later, and it's like his wife's like, "Where'd you go? We're having dinner." And he goes, "It just felt so great." So it's I think with understanding with our seat, we try to educate, we try to share. We've created videos, the first six videos on setting up your seat. Compared to how you have yours set up. So we go through step by step of looking at your shoes, looking at how you're clipped into your pedals, looking at your float, looking at your fore and aft, looking at the height of your seat post, looking at your stem lengths, and then we say, let's go ahead and then put the seat on. So really diving into not just do we have a better mousetrap, but really helping cyclists really understanding their craft and passion as doing this, not from a professional, but as an enjoyment stage to be able to go ahead and be out with your friends and keep riding and not having to focus on how to shift and move away from pain. So at the end of the day, it is now just because you have no discomfort, now I have to focus on my technique. And that's where time sitting on the seat. And we've noticed this, Marco, who we've had the privilege of working with over the years from 2016, saying, yeah, one seat, we needed two different seats. And that's why for him, he'll use the E3, which is a 1/4 inch, and he'll use that on the flats. And on the hill climbing, he'll go ahead and use the E1X. So we're going ahead and changing the way that you're sitting on a seat by having different pressure zones on the bottom, because at the end of the day you're still sitting on your butt bones, you're still sitting on some form of surface of not your butt bones but your pelvic area and your tissue. So we still want to go ahead and change and manipulate that around a little bit. So
We do have a question, Doctor.
yes sir, yes.
Yep.
Brian Seipel. He
Okay.
said, on a 100-mile ride, why might I always get red or sore skin at the very back of my seat area, just below the tailbone? Now, he has an E2.
Right.
Okay. Now we have an E2, but we have a hybrid bike. So the possibility of being more upright, if he's having, so I'm assuming, Brian, that you're talking about that you have some pressure in the back part of the seat is what I'm seeing. So the only real way, and we can go ahead and give him our email and to be able to see how his bike is set up. So if I'm having pressure zones here and I'm a little bit more upright, I really want to see, is his seat, is the rails at 0 or are we at +1 or +2 with elevation? Because if the possibility, if Brian, if you're lowering the nose, if you have any pressure in the perineum or into the male genitalia, if I have any type of lowering the seat, that can cause the backside to raise up a little bit higher while I'm sitting there. So if I notice any type of extra pressure back here, I want to see where my body angle is and where the height of the seat post is dealing with as well. So especially after 100 miles.
I,
Wow.
by the way, on ucm.bike in the show notes, you'll see a link to Infinity Bikes, and Brian can get a hold of you through that website. And
Yeah. And so one more thing, Lee, and here's a great example. So Brian, you also have an E2. I would think about possibly, so on my beach cruisers, on my high wheel, on my touring bike, I go ahead and ride with an E1X, which will then allow, or maybe depending on your height and your weight, could be the E2X. So if we go back, we were talking about before, Brian, is that when we have the open version, here's the E2, and this is, again, no tissue. This is just a bone structure. If I'm sitting inside the openings, you can see where my tailbone is. You can see where things. But if I had, say, an E2X, you're going to be able to see I'm going to ride higher out of the openings of the seat, which will act more as the either the E2X or the E1X will act more like a trampoline, but it'll also go ahead, or a hammock, but it'll raise you up out of the openings a little bit more. So this way, maybe you'll have less pressure on the backside if you were noticing here, because if you're able to do 100 miles on a hybrid, I'm assuming that you might be a little bit more upright versus a road where maybe my angle is a little bit different, where I'm putting a little pressure. So hopefully that helps. Yes, lowering the nose. Okay, so Brian just
Yeah.
said he is lowering the nose. So Brian, do me a favor, look at our website. Look at if you're riding with the nose down, that's going to be a clear indication that the seat post is too high. If the possibility that, do you ride with clip-ins, if you could answer me with that, or do you just have toe clips, or riding just with regular shoes? If that nose is lowering down, that means I'm trying to avoid pressure. So as we said, if the nose is down, what's going to happen? That's going to raise the backside while I'm more erect on my hybrid bike. So yes, he does have clips. Okay, so like I said, I would really look at the setup videos and trying to get your leg angle 150 degrees or lower. And we use a little thing where we bring our index finger, our thumb, and we put that onto the web. And what we're going to do is really look at that angle. And it's really sort of a simple thing that we do. You want to be able to hit the back of the hamstring tendon. But a lot of times we'll see that seat post is just a little too high, and the possibility that maybe on that hybrid bike, if what we were talking about before, Georgie, is that if he feels that he lowers his seat, he might feel a little squatty because of the size of his cranks. So those are little things that I go ahead and really am looking at the person. I'm looking at leg lengths, I'm looking at torso length, I'm looking at shoulder width, and I'm looking at length of arms. And then we determine what manufacturer is going to fit their body to the best. But a lot of times, either a person is going ahead and wrecking a bike, or we see a great looking bike, or somebody maybe recommended because of our height, but not taking in some of the other dynamics of their measurements can sometimes cause a frustration for the cyclist, because now you're doing so many augmentations and spending so much more money on trying to get the bike equipped properly to their geometry of their body.
Wow. Well, that was very scientific. Thanks for that. Some life advice here during the show.
Yeah.
Do we have a little bit more timely? Maybe we can
yeah, we can
hear
go
from.
on as long as we got questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I see a lot of
Lisa
questions
has
popping
one.
up. Hmm.
Okay, so I see it here. Vince, which seat would be best used for an indoor trainer?
Yeah.
And I've been using the E3, as that's what is set up on my road bike. The E3 is a really great seat as well. The one thing that I've noticed when people are having indoor trainers, if they have their bike, I've asked people to think about looking into possibly getting a rocker board. So that way you have the sensation of movement, of being outside. Unfortunately, when people sometimes get frustrated, go, you know what, I love your seat on my bike outdoors, but indoors I'm still, it feels good, but I'm still having some issues because your body's moving,
Right.
but the seat's not. And so a rocker board really makes that whole world a difference because it's taking that outside world and it allows, we're building not just miles and RPMs and training, but we're really adapting our core for long training periods. So, you look at, people such as Marco and Ryan, and I'm sure lots of other folks that are going ahead and putting 20,000 miles a year on a bike. So it's really understanding those dynamics of how your body's sitting on the seat for hours on end. And I really would think about moving. But the E3 is a great seat. If anybody's having issues on their trainer, I would think about lowering the seat maybe 2 millimeters, which is going to bring the seat about a millimeter farther forward. And what that's going to do, it's going to cause the muscle at the bottom of the stroke not to be as stretched out, so you'll have a little bit less rock inside your motion. So it's not so detrimental that it's changing your fit from your road bike your outdoor bike to your indoor bike, but it allows that muscle and depending on how your body is set up, it'll allow for less of a rock while you're going ahead and sitting on a stationary bike if you don't have a rocker board. So bringing it down 2 millimeters, it'll naturally come forward 1 millimeter. It'll allow your arms to relax. It'll allow your shoulders to relax a little bit more. When you're looking at this, it's a 2-to-1 ratio that we look at from how muscles are communicating. Other people use a 3-to-1 ratio. So it's just some things that we look at. But for indoor cycling, I'm going to go ahead and tell people to bring their seat down 2 millimeters, which brings it forward
Well,
1
we've
millimeter.
got a potential customer
Perfect.
here, Dr.
Thanks
Van.
for that. Yep.
Downforce Media.
All
Want
right,
to
wonderful.
respond to- I don't know if that's a man, a woman, or
I normally can go further than 40 miles because of my butt or sit bones discomfort. Been looking at an Infinity, but have no idea if it will work for me. Well, again, if you're having, normally I can go further, or normally I can't go further. That's what I'm assuming this
Yeah.
possibly saying.
Right,
So
right.
because
But
he's not
having
able to
issues at the moment.
having
Mhm.
issue, right? So there's again, I'm always looking at the fit issue first. Downforce is really, I ask everybody, I turn people away when they come in sometimes. Purchasing a seat. And so downforce, please look at, because if you're able to go 40 miles, my question is now what's happening if I'm having butt bone pain at 40 miles versus at 5 miles or 10 miles, I really would look at fit. And a lot of times what people don't know is that their stem could be too long, or the possibility, I have this all the time. People go, you know what? I've been riding a 54, I've been riding a 56, and I bought another new bike, and it's a 56 or a 54, whatever frames they've been riding. But now what takes place is now what they were riding before, they were riding with a seat post that had a 0 offset when they looked at that seat. And now they have that same 54, that 56, but now it has a 20 millimeter offset, which then goes ahead and that makes it, instead of a 54, it's riding like a 56, or a 56 is riding like a 58. That means your cockpit is going to be 20 millimeters farther away. So we really have to think about what is the stretch, and what the reason why that is so important. If I'm too stretched out, or I'm not able to have a nice bend in my arms, what that's going to take place, it's going to put more pressure onto the pelvic area while I'm trying to ride. So I believe that with the gentleman that just, or the person that just asked that question, I would really look at how my body's communicating at
Mhm.
that 40-mile mark. I'd really ask, because that's where we see, in most of us, I would say that over the 10 years of doing fittings and coaching folks, is that I've seen people, we all have that magic number. We all get to that 35 to maybe say 25 to 50 miles, 75-mile range, that things start to go ahead and go crazy. And so here's one thing that people don't know, downforce, is if you're able to do 40 miles, I'm going to bring something up that's sort of off the seat for a second, going back into that visceral, that organ muscle relationship. There's a muscle called the latissimus muscle. It comes from the small of the back, comes around and attaches to the front of the shoulders. That one muscle is connected to your adrenal glands and your pancreas. The pancreas releases insulin. So when your body's breaking down food, sugars, to go ahead and turn to ATP to drive those muscles, the adrenals will go ahead and cause a inky because it says, I need to work harder. And what it'll do is it'll cause that latissimus to get tighter, which will then cause me to pull up to the cockpit, which can change my seat position of how I'm sitting onto the seat. If so, the other questions I would ask
Hmm.
downforce, do you feel anywhere during that 20, 30, 40-mile ride, do you find yourself having to push yourself back in the seat? That'd be my other question. I see you wrote another question. So in
And
other words, I need to worry about the fit of my bike first, then figure out saddle. I never been professional fit next on my list of things. So that's great. Like I
mhm.
said, you can go directly to our
Yeah.
website. You're doing 40 miles already. What I would do is, so many people go to get a fit and they spend $300-400. They're going to go ahead and then spend, all this time. I would really take look at us as training wheels. Go onto our website, look at the first 6 videos or the 9 videos that we have, and look at how you're set up on your bike first. Then 4 to 8 weeks of neuromuscular memory when you've dialed your things in, or you've adjusted your float, or you've moved your cleat. So often, guys, so often I see people that have broken clips. They have broken rings on the speed plates. They have their plates. Their foot is not balanced inside where they're driving power through, which will throw off your whole canter when you're sitting on that bike seat and as you're driving and pedaling. So if everybody would start to look, they don't have to be fitters. They just have to look at the simplicity of those videos. They're a few minutes long. And it really makes such a big difference because now I use this as my training wheels. I'll do 4 to 8 weeks of neuromuscular. Say I found my one foot was going out as I was pedaling, which caused my knee to go away from the top tube, which caused me to straddle on the bike on one side where I feel pressure on my right butt bone, or on the opposite. But now if I line things up, I look at things at how I'm sitting on the bike, I'm looking at cockpit, I'm looking at length, then now 4 to 8 weeks, now you cause a neuromuscular memory. But if you go into the fitter straight away and you do all this stuff, you get frustrated. You go ahead and you don't think about that. You're like, oh, I have to adjust the seat now because it doesn't really quite feel well. But if you don't spend anything with me and you just look at the first 6 videos, and now you've educated your body, so when you go spend your hard-earned money at that beautiful fitter that has so much knowledge to bestow upon you, it will go so much farther. So those are the things that we really
Mhm.
try to help people understand.
And
I see another question here. It says,
yep.
do you see offers? Do you still offer your own saddles, style of
No,
bibs?
yep, your bits.
Yeah.
And
So
they're
we
saying
do.
regular bits don't really work well.
Well, let's really quick. Hold on.
Georgie,
All right.
this is going to be quite a show.
Yeah, quite the show. We have Dr. Vince here. I was going to ask him actually, how can people try the seat? Where can they go to try the seats? Maybe they're not able to come in person in California, but I think maybe that's a good follow-up question to the previous
Yeah.
gentleman question.
All right. So let me just do this first, and then we'll be able to go.
Yep,
So
yep.
most of the time, so back 30 years ago, we didn't have bibs. We had shorts that had little chamois in them that would wick away the sweat from your body. Over the years, people have had so many problems with pain and discomfort. And just for as a quick side note, guys, this is a seat from the late 1800s. This is from the Hunt
Wow.
manufacturers. And if you look at it, you can see it's not symmetrical. This is symmetrical. This is symmetrical. But you can see the wear of how the seat is situated is not even. So this is one of the seats that we use when I'm trying to understand, as well as a half dozen more of those. But if you look at it, the bibs today have come up with another basic bicycle pad inside your bibs, trying to deal with pain, discomfort. So if you go ahead and if I'm going to sit on the saddle, yes, I might want some extra padding to give me a little bit more cush. But if you look, when you see the seat, those extra pads are going to fall through the openings of the seat. The other component is that if I have more padding in the perineum area, right through this area, it's going to put pressure. It has a convex area of how it sits up inside my perineum. So when we look at I was talking to a company called Jack Rue, and they worked out a way and designed a pad specifically for our seat. And so going back to the old technology of having a thin chamois, this is 2.5 millimeters, maybe 3 millimeters in thickness, but it has a waffle print, which will go ahead and allow the sweat to be wicked away from the body, as we were talking about reducing the moisture around the perineum. So this way tissue can breathe, the cellular tissue can go ahead and still keep its same pH, so we have less chafing and less issues. But that's sort of that on the bibs. Again, that goes into, I think, number 9 or number 8 on one of the videos that can talk more about that. So yes, you either go onto our website or you can go onto Jack Rue. Jack Rue is also now using our Infinity bib into any of their customizations as well, so you can talk to them and set that up. So Georgie, you were talking about where to try the seat.
Right.
Sometimes you can see on our website different bicycle shops that might be having them, or sometimes reaching out to us. We go ahead and we have ambassadors. We have close to 200 ambassadors around the world that are going ahead and love our seats. They go ahead and are just enthusiasts for the seats. We have people that have become distributors that have other full-time businesses, but they love the seat so much that they want their countrymen to be able to go ahead and know about it. So either we can see if there's possibly somebody in your neighborhood. That's our website, infinitybikeseat.com, or we also are Diane of Infinity at gmail.com. You can go ahead and email her and she can go ahead. But usually our ambassadors will go ahead, or the biggest thing that we've seen is people being in a ride and they see the seat and they sort of have funny looks about it, and they come in and they look at it and say, okay, and then they sit on it. Georgie, what are some of the experiences that you've had that people look at your seat and they try it?
Oh yeah, I mean, they're shocked, first, oh, is this really going to work? But those that have problems and try it, most of them come back with a smile, and they never turn back. I think I
Right.
had mine for 6 years, and I had the very first one. It had no leather. I don't know the exact name. It was in
That's
2017, and the nose was a little longer, but it was still comfortable even without the leather.
That's
So,
because you didn't have any pressure on your bone tissue. And
right.
that's when we first came out, we didn't have, we had to start all over and trying to find a leather artisan that could help us wrap this thing. And people go, oh, there's like half a seat. You should be able to charge half the amount. But if you look at it, to wrap the seat, you not only have to wrap the outside, but you have to wrap the inside. So the labor that it takes to go ahead and make this seat and do is everything's done here in California. So it's been. I see Downforce says
Yep.
I'm filming. Oh, Al Jefferson must be in Australia or New
Yeah.
Zealand. Al Jefferson next year during RAM
Do
for a
it.
documentary. Can't wait to see your product in use.
Yep.
Well, fantastic, Downforce. Please do me a favor and come visit us,
Hey,
since you're hopefully going to be flying into LA.
hey, Downforce. Let me interrupt here. Let's get Al on the show.
Yeah,
I think we've had him
Yep.
on before, but it's time for him to be back on. So
yeah, he's
I'm
doing
gonna give you that
2024.
assignment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe good opportunity, Dr. Vince. I'm reading Al Jefferson. I know Phil Fox just chimed in. Sylvia Mass, Dustin, she's asking for one of the custom-made seats. But all these names, I know these names. Everyone following UltraCycling does. Who uses the seat? What races has the seat won? It's very popular. I know we both know stories of saving someone's Ram in the
Oh,
middle of Ram. They will get a seat delivered to them, and I've had one myself this year. So
right.
tell us a little bit.
Well, we had Zamboni, Valerio. He went
Yeah.
ahead and I think, what was it, 2017, 2018, something. He went ahead and he sent a limousine to go pick up a seat from somebody that was like 100 miles out, because there was no taxis, nobody around. So he sent a limousine.
Only Valerio.
And Georgie, we had a gentleman that was doing RAM, and
Yep.
he had an issue, and then we reached out to you and
Yep.
share your story.
Yeah, I mean, I was crew for all, and we get a call from the end. Someone's looking for the seat, and we're looking on the tracker. I think they were about 40 miles from us.
Yeah.
So we went down and connected with these guys. They were not even speaking English well. I think they were from Germany.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, you should have seen the face of the gentleman that was racing. And I looked at the seat. He was not sitting. He was pedaling standing. And I think they purchased some sort of sponge and they had it taped to the seat. And when they saw us, they were so happy. So the seat really helped them. But
If
yeah,
if
But I
Jim
think
Lawyer would have been here tonight, he could tell you the story of working at Time Station 43, yanking the saddle off his own bike,
yep.
running it over to West Virginia. And for the life of me, I was going to let Jim tell the story. He's not here. I can't remember who it was, but he saved the day for him. Oh, and he was as far as West Virginia, ready to quit.
Yeah, I think that was almost a 300-mile round trip for
Yes.
yeah.
To track
And
him down. So that's an interesting story. Well, I don't know, Dr. Vince. We've had so many kudos here tonight.
yep,
I didn't quite expect all this. I knew we'd get some favorable comments, but my goodness,
I know.
That's great. That's
and
great.
your willingness to help. I really hate to bring this to a close, Georgie, but I think we're
Yeah.
going to have to wrap it up. Dr. Vince,
Yeah, thank you.
we're going to have you back again. How that be?
That'd be great. And like I said, I'd love to go ahead and keep sharing. There's just so many pieces of the puzzle of, if I could just leave on this note, for all the wonderful cyclists that have this passion, that are raising money for charity, that are doing their dream of going ahead and being inspired by others, and this passion for cycling. Please think about everything. The hardest thing that we've seen is when somebody is doing these great events and they feel so defeated afterwards, but not for themselves, but they feel that they've let their team down. They feel this weight of the world because so many of their friends and family have given up time from their vacation, and they just feel that they've let them down. And I've just where they've had Shermer's neck, which I'd love to go ahead and have a whole hour on just that if we could, because that would just scrape the surface of understanding some of the biomechanics behind that, not just fatigability of muscle, but just there's more to just the food and just the stuff that you're taking in, trying to get 6,000 to 10,000 calories in a day, to trying to go ahead and just have your bike and your team to be able to run. But there's just the spinal aspects, there's the organ aspects. And just because you start off with one fit at the beginning of a race, know that it shouldn't be the same fit that you have at the end, because muscles will get tired. And if you go ahead and bring your seat down, move the seat slightly forward, you shorten up the muscle, then you reduce the output of work, which allows the bodies to sort of catch up. But when you keep the bike at the same position while your body's exhausted, you're always going to be working at the extent portion of how you're delivering force and power through that pedal stroke. And so I'd love to be back on, and I'd love to go
Beautiful.
ahead and
Do
keep
that.
sharing
Let's
it.
plan to do that.
Beautiful.
Talk a little bit about. We can chat later about what the agenda ought to be. And Georgie, thank you so much for stepping in here and helping tonight.
Thank you.
We really appreciate Georgie. He made the contact for us, did the arranging, and this is what we're trying to do, Dr. Vince. You were asking about the name change. We're trying to recruit a whole cadre of people like Georgie who will be out there looking for stories and helping tell the story of UltraCycling. And we thank everybody for supporting us. We appreciate that a great deal. And if you know of anybody you think has a great story to tell, hey, get in touch with us. We're always looking for new stories, particularly younger people. We're anxious to find new talent because I hate to say it, but the average age sometimes in our rosters are starting to creep up. We got to bring some new people in here. We had a bunch of new people show up this year. We're going to try to reach out to them as well. Don't go away, Dr. Vince. We want to have a little debriefing once we get off the air, but we do need to bring this to an end. Let's see that I have. Let's see any more comments here that need to be done.
And subscribe, please. We have to remind everyone subscribe and share.
Yeah, let's be sure to subscribe to the show on. I'm not going to try to bring that up again, but on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, give us a subscribe and ring that bell. And the more people that do that, the more people get to see the show. The way this crazy internet works is the more you get, the more you get. And so it's not that our egos need assuaging that much, although we do have egos, I have to confess. It's the idea. We want to get the story of UltraCycling out there to more people. And I see Dusty has already voted for whatever Dusty wants, we'll give. You know, I mean,
There you go. Problem solved.
I got to share something with you guys. Hold on 1 second.
All right. And Lee, I will have to rewatch this and take a lot of notes. This was a lot of information. Oh, check this out. Let's see what this is.
This is Dusty's
that's
artwork.
from Dusty.
Yeah,
I can tell.
I knew it.
I got one over here in Studio B. I'm in Studio A now, but
there's her gratitude, right? Pure gratitude. Yeah. She's always just being amazing. Yeah. So we love you, Dusty.
We love Dusty. And
all right.
Again, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks. I didn't get everybody's comment posted. There were just too many. But I think I got everybody at least once, and we got the questions on. If I missed you, I'm sorry, but boy, we were just swamped here tonight, and that's a good thing. We like being swamped. With that, I'm going to see if I can't find our friend Greg, wake him up, and let's see, where is he at? Okay, Greg Zuber, get us out of here. Goodbye, everybody.
This is Gregory Zuber, thanking you for watching and sharing.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.